Hello and welcome to Street Talk, your voice and your views on the issues in the news. We're coming to you from London this week. Well, there is English as fish and chips, but one great British icon is becoming an endangered species. Since 1926, Britain's famous red telephone boxes have been stationed at almost every corner of the country. But now that nearly everyone owns a mobile phone, the red kiosks are becoming white elephants. These days, the only people you'll see inside are eager tourists hoping to snap up a bit of Britain. With British Telecom's revenue from the phone boxes down by about 50%, the proud icons that survived a world war may be hung up on the scrap heap. Well, we asked a native Londoner, Sumit Chandra, to tell us in his own words what he remembers about the red telephone boxes and what their demise means to Britain.
As a Londoner, I mean, the phone box was prevalent wherever growing up. And in terms of fond memories, I don't know about fond, but I've got memories. And when you were younger, before the advent of mobile phones, it was the only real way when you were out from home, etc., to contact anyone. And I do recall how they used to work. You used to have to dial a number, and then the other person would pick the phone up, and then you'd hear a beep, and then you had to put your money in. And if you didn't get your money in on time, the phone would get cut off. So it was a really annoying thing. But, you know, as a public use instrument, I think they've been good. But like everything, you know, have they had their time? I think they have. Only that technology, mobile phones, have really embraced everything. And today I think the phone box doesn't really offer the type of service or coverage that, you know, one would need today. Britain's changing. I think if you really looked at, you know, the phone box really had one use, you know, to make phone calls. But if you looked at its real use, it probably had 110. I mean, public lavatories, shelters, you know, refuse bins. So I think the time has come for them to move on. In terms of their image, it's like everything quaint about England, you know, black cabs, bobbies on their bicycles, London buses, all great, but London has moved on. And today I think with the internet, I mean, you could use the image of that phone box if it really was something that people fell in love with, but I think as a tool, it's not really that useful any longer. But, you know, so a fond farewell or good riddance, I think a bit of both really, yeah.
It's being called the server in the sky. The FBI is enlisting the help of British law enforcement to set up an international database containing the biometric information of millions of suspected criminals and terrorists. But last week, the Ministry of Defence found itself embroiled in another cyber scandal when a laptop containing the personal information of 600,000 people who'd expressed interest in joining the armed services was stolen. We took our open mic to the streets to ask people how comfortable they felt about letting the government loose with their privacy.
With hard copies, it's harder to get one's hands on lots of information all at once. I mean, the problem with electronic copies and cyberspace is that huge amounts of information can be taken down at a go, and I think this is very worrying.
I mean, I don't do internet banking. The only thing I do on internet is buy my online shopping from Waitrose or Carter, and that is very, very safe. But as for online banking and things like that, no, I do not do that, not at all.
Some information needs to be out there, and I think whether it be, I don't know, all the talk about identity cards and all that type of thing as well, part of me thinks it's a little bit Big Brother, perhaps, and other parts think if you've got nothing to hide, if criminal activity, things like that, if you've got nothing to hide, then why should you worry about your details being there if you're not doing anything wrong?
With the capture of 2 anti-whaling activists last week, the Japanese government's looking for ways to stop further acts of such activism. Although there's a moratorium on whaling, Japan is permitted to conduct an annual scientific hunt in order to gather more research on the sea mammal. Japan plans on hunting nearly 1,000 whales during the Antarctic summer. Well, anti-whaling campaigners vowed more confrontations with Japan's whaling fleet near Antarctica on Friday, while the whalers aim to exhaust the protest ship's fuel supplies to force them out of the area. Well, here are some of your thoughts. Jackie here in London thinks that the intelligence of people is being questioned. Do they really think we're stupid enough to believe that the hunting is for research purposes? It's hard to believe that such outdated practices are still taking place. Well, Taka, who wrote in from Japan, agrees with Jackie. The hunts are barbaric and need to stop. These harmless animals are being attacked and killed for human greed. But Tonya from California writes in saying she believes in science. Although we hate to see animals suffer, in many instances this ends up proving helpful to humans in the long run. The means justify the end. And that's it for this edition of Street Talk, coming to you from London. Don't forget to point us to anything interesting or amusing you'd like us to feature. Remember, what you see here isn't necessarily the view of Al Jazeera, and some of the content may be edited, but for time and space reasons only. And that's the talk on the streets of London.